Today, I want to give you the step-by-step strategy that I took to avoid surgery after my L5-S1 disc rupture diagnosis, along with being told that the discs above that site were all degenerative. Now, this was 15 years ago. I live chronic back pain free today, but at that time, after that diagnosis and before that diagnosis, I was living with 6+ years of chronic back pain. So today, I'm gonna break down the steps, what I did, and give you some actionable lessons that I've learned that you can take away today. So before we dive into the details, I wanna really kind of paint a picture for you of where I was at that time. So I was in my early 20s, 2021. I was in college, a little bit before college, but I was also all throughout college, I was dealing with this. And my back was just constantly tight, right? It was very irritated, very sensitive. I was constantly foam rolling after sets of deadlifts and squatting, and I was waking up with more and more sensitivity. Now, I was young at this point, so I was kind of just like brushing it off. I didn't know what was going on. I hadn't gotten my diagnosis yet, and I was just trying to do just your general stuff, the stretches, treating symptoms that I was experiencing and not really knowing what to do until I was in college and I was doing my degree in exercise science and I was lifting, I was doing all the things I was always doing, and I started to have very frequent spasms to the point of where I couldn't leave neutral, right? If I were to do this to go flush a toilet or do anything, my back would lock up. And that created a lot of fear around movement. I was altering the way I was living and using my body simply to stay away from keeping myself from falling back into another flare-up. And these flare-ups would last weeks and weeks and weeks, to the point where I started seeing doctors, right? I couldn't fix it myself. I had no idea what I was doing. I was just like you, just like trying to YouTube stuff and Instagram stuff, and nothing seemed to be actually sticking, which led me to making my appointment with my orthopedic spine surgeon. And that was the best in the place that I was living at the time. He was the best in the area. He was very well known for sports surgeries and back injuries and things like that. Booked an appointment with him, had an MRI, met with him, and he basically sat me down and said, hey, you know what? I know you're only 21 years old, but you're not gonna be able to deadlift anymore. You can't exercise the way you exercise now. I wanna pause really quick on this specific point. At that time, when I was in the gym working out with chronic low back pain, before I had doctor visits, I was destroying my back, making things worse. And even after my doctor said, hey, you should probably stop exercising like that, I still kept doing what I thought was okay, but was actually making my pain worse. And one of the most important things you do if you are in the gym is exercise according to your back pain. So here's a free guide you can take to do just that. Go to fitnessforbackpain.com/pain-free training. It is the guide that I wish someone gave me 10 years ago when I was in pain in the gym, just making my back pain worse. I'm gonna talk about the exercise choice, the reps. I'm gonna talk about the order of your exercises, how to make the perfect back-friendly workout for yourself. fitnessforbackpain.com/pain-free training. It's my gift to you. Let's jump back in. And your best plan of attack right now is doing PT. Then if that doesn't work, going into injections. And if that doesn't work, then going into having a surgery. And probably in this situation, I would be having a fusion. So as you would imagine, this wrecked me. I was very, very young. This pain persisted, right? I didn't want to have injections. I didn't want to have surgery. So I started doing PT, and I was seeing a PT. I was working through that process, seeing multiple variations of PTs, which led me down to seeing multiple variations of chiropractors, which then led me down to seeing multiple people who were influencers on Instagram. Fast forward, I remember traveling an hour to go see, at the time, was a very influential Instagram influencer in the rehab space, and across the board with chiropractors, with PTs, physios, massage therapists, just give me random things to do, right? One person said my hip flexors were tight. One person said when I was squatting, my glutes weren't activating the way they should. One person was blaming all of my low back tightness with bending over, with a lack of alignment. You can probably guess who was telling me that. And I was going from treatment to treatment to treatment, all while I would be in insane amounts of pain going to these treatments. They would be treating me in pain, and I would leave with more pain, which led me to say, okay, you guys aren't helping me. I'm gonna try to do this on my own, which led me down the rabbit hole of YouTube videos. And I was in so much pain. Now, fast forward, I had had my first child, my daughter at the time. was so incapable of just holding her outside of my center of gravity. If I were to put her in her crib, my back would lock up, or I would fall into the crib trying to put her in there. That's how severe my chronic back pain was. And it was ups and downs for years trying to navigate things on my own, until the day I called my office where I was meeting these people to get help with my back. This was the surgeon that I told you about earlier. And I had scheduled, because all these things weren't working, I said, okay, you know what? Injections are my next step. And I had called them the day that I was supposed to go there to get it done. And I said, hey, I'm done with this. I don't want to have injections. I'm going to cancel my appointment. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm going off on my own, basically. And that was a pivotal time in my strategy, because I kind of made the decision to get away from the medical model and start doing things more intentionally. I was already doing things, right? Doing things more intentionally with my own personal strategy. Now, unfortunately, this led to more years of chronic pain. I was not doing the right things. I was testing and trial and error and trying to piece things together that I had no idea what to do, which led to more pain, more sensitivity, more avoidance. I was afraid of moving my spine in certain ways. I was avoiding things. I was doing certain methods that only preach neutral spine, that create a lot of fear around holding my body in positions that were not neutral. So this led to more and more and more time, until I began to get more help and coaching individually with my specific situation that mapped out what I'm going to share with you here today. If you've made it this far, is what I have kind of come to call my STR method. If I could just break down all the thousands of dollars and hours and hours and hours time spent getting help, practicing, and putting this stuff to work, I break it down into an STR method. I'm gonna break down what the S, T, and R is along the way for you to have complete clarity on exactly what I did. So the first step to avoiding surgery, canceling injections, and getting on a path that would allow me to overcome the chronic low back pain that I was in was understanding the process of desensitizing my pain system. The biggest mistake I made in my own personal back pain relief journey was doing things like trying to apply exercise too soon to a painful system. I was pushing too hard, trying to heal my body and treat the symptoms that I was dealing with. I was constantly retelling the story of what the doctor had told me, the MRI results that I had. I actually got a second MRI, which confirmed how damaged my body was. And I was soaking myself in this fear and anxiety around how I needed to fix the damage before the pain actually went away. I would spend hours doing YouTube videos on yoga stretches and routines for chronic low back pain, which only made my tissues more sensitive, which elevated my pain system's response through fear and anxiety and tension and symptoms, which then kept me on this constant cycle of pain coming in and out of flare-ups and sensitivity. So after addressing all of these big mistakes that I was making that kept me in pain, here are the things that I started to switch and change and focus on to actually get the results that I wanted. The first thing I had to understand was chronic back pain. We're not talking about acute back pain, we're talking about chronic back pain is a systemic problem. It's a full system, top down, bottom up problem that involves more than just your herniated disc or bulging disc or ruptured disc or degenerative spine or stenosis or whatever you may have. There's more to it than just that. And what I had to understand was calming my pain system down had to be a top priority. And you don't calm your pain system down by adding more stress, like exercise, movement, things like that. Those are great things, and it's okay the body is stressed out, where our bodies are designed to handle and manage stress. But from a pain system perspective, all of these stretches, all of these treatments like stretches and adjustments and physical therapy were just creating an oversensitive, overstimulated pain system. So it kept me stuck way above what I call now my pain threshold. So a part of this S, or the sensitivity factor of my strategy, is I had to stop everything. Stop the stretches, stop this, stop the videos, stop the savings of videos to try to do later in hopes of it working once my pain calmed down. I stopped all the treatments that were just giving me temporary relief, fake relief, that were just survival strategies. and allow my body to calm down. Now, there's more to it than just stopping everything, right? I needed to actually mentally get myself off of the hamster wheel of fear, of anxiety, of worry, of doubt, of not trusting my body, not trusting my low back, not trusting that my body could actually heal. I created a lot of fear and created a lot of uncertainty around the natural movements that my body, that God created my body to be able to do. I was stuck, and that was the ultimate focus point that I had to make first. And before we jump into this second point, I want to make sure that you can walk away with some actionable steps, right? With some more information, more detail around what we're kind of talking about with this STR method. And I created a free workshop. It's yours for free. Just go to fitnessforbackpain.com/relief workshop. You can watch it on your own time. It's going to dive deeper with more examples of what we're talking about today, with more actionable things that you can take advantage of. So if you'd like that free guide, you want to check out that workshop that I did, just go to fitnessforbackpain.com/relief workshop, grab it, put it in your pocket for later, and now we can jump back into the video. So the second step that I took was building tolerance, right? This is the T in the STR method. And what this was, it was a really fun time because once you understand the process of desensitizing your pain system, the results come back quickly, right? Things like washing dishes or tying your shoes or rolling over in bed in the middle of the night or getting in and out of your car or buckling your seatbelt up or picking your kid up, all those things begin to come back to you. So you're like, oh wow, like this is actually working. So you can have evidence that what you're doing is actually good for your back. So the next step was building tolerance back in my tissues. Now we have to first start with the mistakes that I made, because this is where you're at, right? These are the things that I know that you're making mistakes on. And some of the biggest mistakes that I made when building tolerance was constantly doing way too much when it comes to applying exercises to my body. Not really knowing, why was I doing a specific exercise? Why was I using this exercise to build tolerance back in my tissues? Was this just an exercise that I found online? Was this something that the most viral back pain relief video on YouTube was teaching me to do? What was it that I needed to do, and why was I doing the exercise in the first place? And a part of that big mistake was kind of letting my brain and where I came from judge and dictate the exercises that I picked. I was just like, okay, I need to exercise. You need to start building strength. I got to get back in the gym, right? I can't just desensitize or lay around or do nothing. What I felt was nothing. It wasn't nothing, but I can't just do nothing forever. Like, I have to eventually get back into exercise. So what do? You go to the gym and you say, okay, well, this machine looks safe, and you just do it. And then you're checking, did that hurt? Did that create more symptoms? Like, am I okay? My back feels kind of tight. Okay, let me stretch it out a little bit. Like, that's what naturally you're going to do when you go back into the gym, building tolerance back in your low back. But it's not just about building tolerance in your low back. You've got sensitive tissues, right? And it's not just a low back thing. It's a full body. It's a systemic thing. So not only are you pairing exercises that are designed to build tolerance back in my body, I'm also trying to overcome things like fear of certain movements. Fear of doing an exercise, because that movement used to cause me a lot of pain. That movement, if I kept repeating it, would cause back tightness, which would lead to a spasm. So there's a mental aspect to the tolerance that I was building, and the mistake that I was making was not giving any credit to that fact right there. What I was doing was just using exercise to build strength again. I was focusing on strength, picking exercises, because as an exercise science degree major, a lifelong researcher and studier of the human body and building strength, that's what I know how to do really well. And in fact, it was actually the wrong thing being applied, it was the right thing being applied at the wrong time. So after making all these mistakes, here is what I actually discovered works when it comes to building tolerance back in the body. Number one, it's a humbling experience. It's a humbling process. And I say that because, again, going back to the point I made earlier, you can't just pick exercise because it's labeled exercise. You have to understand why you're doing the exercise and when to do these exercises. And understanding that tissue strength, tissue health trumps, is way more important than your mental strength. We kind of get caught up in what we feel we are confidently capable of doing. I can deadlift 400 pounds because I've done it before. I haven't done it in a while, but I've done it before. I'm confident that I can lift heavy weights in certain environments. But at that time, I was trying to apply that confidence to a painful system, to tissues that have been fearful, crampy, spasmy, tight, achy for a very, very long time. So my mental, I kept saying, okay, no, I can do this. Like I was trying to hype myself up and consciously impact my pain, consciously stop the pain from actually happening. And you can't do that. Test this theory. Tell your hand to start hurting right now. Just say, hey, hand, start hurting. I promise you, you can't do it because you can't consciously impact the pain that you experience. You have to be sneaky and you have to respect and understand the process of tolerance building back into tissues. Now, this is not a bunch of woo-woo science tree hugging stuff. No, this is actionable things that you can do, but you have to first, it's less about the specific exercise. It's not like, man, the hip thrusts are what really helped me. No, I cannot identify a single exercise that I did that was like, my glute medians were sleeping for 6 years, and once I woke them suckers up, my back pain was just gone. That's not how it is. That's what the internet sells you, I promise you, but that's not what it is. Once you understood the principles of building tolerance from both a mental perspective and a physical perspective, and you were able to remove the ego, remove the mental strength and what you think you can or should be doing, that's where the success came. Now, this final step is where I believe 98% or more of chronic low back pain sufferers who have been struggling to get relief from their pain make the most critical mistakes. And the way I explain this is we view exercise from an exercise perspective. I kind of talked about that earlier. My background, my history, my knowledge, all that stuff. We tend to look at exercise based off of what we know, our history, how long have we been working out, what we're capable of doing. And that's an exercise perspective, right? Exercise is good. It's a good stress on the body. But the critical mistake that most chronic back pain sufferers make when they're trying to apply exercise is not viewing exercise from a pain perspective. And what happens is you let ego, the history, your knowledge of exercise and what you think you can and cannot do be the leading force in the choices that you make in the gym. The goal at this point in this third step is to build resilience back in the body, not just tolerance. We're building tolerance. You're back to hiking longer. You're back to swinging a golf club. You're back to kayaking or doing long road trips. You're back to that. But you're still hitting limitations, right? There's still a healing process going on, which is where we have to build resilience in these now pain-free tissues. And this is a process. You can't just jump back into deadlifts. You can't just jump back into squats and lunges. And that was a big mistake that I kept making. I thought, okay, I feel better. I'm like, 90% better. There's still some things that kind of irritate me a little bit if I do them enough, which is normal. I must be okay to get back to doing what I used to do. And that's what kept me back in this weird cycle that actually started bringing my pain back. So at this point in the process, I had to let go of this idea of how can I make my body look better? How can I get stronger? How can I, lose weight? All the normal, exercise perspective things. And I had to start asking myself the question, how is this going to take me to the next step in what I'm trying to do? Which requires you to understand your specific pain amplifiers, your specific pain profile, which for my specific pain profile, it was the fear around certain movements, the fear around bending, the fear around twisting, what I allowed influencers to feed into my spirit and make me at the depth of my heart believe about my body and how broken and fragile I was. So it wasn't about, again, oh, you're at this point, you got to be doing this exercise, you got to be bending your low back. You have to be touching your toes. It's not about that. It's not about that. You have to, yes, you might use those things at a certain time, but you have to understand the ins and outs of your own pain profile. I talk about this all the time, which is why one-on-one coaching is so powerful, because you're not just focusing on generic exercises for a generic person. You're focusing on exercises from a pain perspective that fit a very unique individual such as yourself. And I'll finish with this. This is what you really need to understand when it comes to using exercise to get out of pain. One, you've got to trust the process and trust that it's not just going to be time in the gym, specific exercises that get you out of pain. It's going to actually be golfing. It's going to actually be playing tennis. It's going to be long road trips. It's going to be wrestling with your kids. It's going to be gardening. It's going to be doing the things that are pain triggers for you, because that is how you build tolerance and that is how you build resilience. You can't go to the gym, strap a bunch of weight on a barbell, deadlift, weight, squat, bent over row, whatever it is, and get you back to playing tennis. Because yes, there are strength training exercises that can improve your game, but we're not talking about that. That's an exercise perspective. We're trying to get out of pain and build a resilience back to a sport that is very dynamic, or an activity such as gardening or cleaning or vacuuming or whatever it is that you're trying to get back to. So we stop looking at exercise in a way that says, okay, you deadlift, which allows you to play golf longer. No, that's not how that works. We use the activities that we have lost the ability to do in an exercise fashion to be able to get back to doing those things. Because it's not just about your body can't do it anymore. There's a mental aspect to it. There's a fear aspect to it. There's a perceived danger aspect to it. Then there is a tissue tolerance aspect. Then there is a tissue resilience aspect. So as you can see, these are layers to overcoming specific pain problems when it comes to your individual pain profile. And the biggest mistake you could ever do is go on YouTube searching exercises for back pain relief, and you're starting with exercise. If you're at this point, I hope that you see this STR method, right? Where we're dealing with something in a very specific order is the only order that you can do to actually get lasting relief. Doing it this way breaks the addiction of short-term strategies, constantly chasing symptoms, doing things out of order that just create this cycle of symptoms that float around, that change. You have good days and bad days. You have a great week and then bam, you fall back into a flare-up. Doing them in this specific order deletes all of that from happening, because everything that you do is strategic. Everything that you do is purpose driven, is results driven, is data driven. We no longer just guess and take shots in the dark based off of the biggest influencer saying the biggest thing, right? I paid a lot of money to go see what at the time, one of the biggest social media influencers in the rehab space. And he gave me zero advice that I could actually take home and use to get results. It was the same old thing, which is what's so frustrating about the internet and this message that I've been trying to get across from people for so many years. The amount of followers, the amount of likes and shares means nothing when it comes to actually getting relief. Because at the end of the day, what matters most is your unique pain profile. Once you understand that intimately, right? And there's a level that you understand that no one else understands it. Once you say, oh, he understands the specifics around my problem. And not only that, but it makes so much sense, the order that we're doing these things in. And it not just makes sense, but I'm actually seeing results step by step. That's the process of getting out of pain. That's literally what I did to cancel my injections, to cancel this surgery trajectory that I was going on. That I have no idea where I would be at today if I would have had a fusion. I have no idea what I would be at today if I had had an injection. What if I got some relief from the injection and then I got addicted to the relief that the injections made, and I got another one and I started maxing out every 6 months getting injections until I couldn't get them anymore. So I spend years and thousands of dollars getting injections that don't actually yield lasting relief. It's temporary relief, like stretching, like Tylenol, like ibuprofen, like injections, like chiropractic care, like physical therapy. All these things are temporary masking strategies that don't get to the root issue of your pain. So if I can leave you with one thing, stop following mainstream advice when it comes to chronic back pain, right? This is what I do with people in a one-on-one setting all the time. And this is my favorite thing to do, is to crack wide open beliefs, fears, and anxieties around your body give you the confidence and the facts and the steps to take to overcome the anxiety so that you can live and you can move and you can use your body, as weird or as normal as that may be, chronic pain free. Now, if you're at a place where you're like, man, this whole thing, you're talking to me, right? You're serious about getting relief. You have tried everything. You don't want to experiment with more injections. You don't want to experiment with more physical therapy or with disc replacement or PRP. You don't want to do that. You're done with that stuff. And you're scared to move. You're scared of picking the right exercises or the wrong exercises. You don't know what to do. You keep falling back on your face. I want to encourage you to get help. This is what I do with students all the time, day in and day out. I share results from my students on a weekly basis across my social media. If you feel stuck and you're at that point where you're like, you know what? I keep spinning my wheels. I want to do something different. The least you can do is have a simple conversation, and we can jump on a call. You can go to fitnessforbackpain.com/apply. That'll give me some information about you, where you're coming from, the diagnosis that you have, what you've tried, what you haven't tried, which will allow me to have an educated, informative discussion around your situation to know whether or not what I do using this STR method will actually get you lasting relief for a fact before you even commit to anything. And I'm happy to take the time to teach you that and to make sure that what I do can actually help. Let's have the conversation. Just go to fitnessforbackpain.com/apply. Please only go that direction if you are serious about getting help and you're ready to make a change in your life. fitnessforbackpain.com/apply. I hope this gives value to you. I hope it kind of steers you in a direction, knowing you can kind of analyze what you're doing, what you've been doing, what your chiro, your PT, your physio, your doctor, your Reiki master, your acupuncture specialist telling you that you should be doing. I hope you're able to kind of take a step back and say, man, if I take what William has said and I apply it to what I'm doing, it's backwards. What I'm doing, it doesn't look like what he just instructed me to do. And if that's the case, you gotta be ready for a change. Thanks for watching. God bless, and I'll see you on the next episode.